Welcome to the Intercut Podcast, the weekly show going over the TV, movies, and entertainment that people can't cut away from. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, he gets older and high school girls stay the same age. It's Arturo Zurita.
Now, we talked about this quote, Zach. This is 2018. This quote does not work anymore. That has officially become the gift that is used whenever another person comes out as being alleged. And we were saying this. Matthew McConaughey back then wasn't good-looking Matthew McConaughey. He wasn't the Matthew McConaughey in the Lincoln commercial.
Yeah.
It was Matthew McConaughey with the pedo mustache. Matthew McConaughey with the bowl haircut.
Yeah, the weirdly dyed hair. It's weird that 30 years later he's so much more attractive than way back then. But
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that Hollywood money's good for you.
And the quote is creepier 30 years later than it was back then. So
I'm just trying to celebrate your birthday. You're another year
older.
older.
That's right. Yeah, we didn't do the podcast last week because May 11th, my birthday, and it was Mother's Day as well. Thanks, man. Yeah. Some people still think I'm 50 because I had mentioned I was 50 in my Black Panther. He was like, "How? You're right. So how? That's not. You look incredible." Yeah. I said, "Oh, it's that vibranium." Yeah. No, 25. 25 right there.
There you go. So you and your twin brother combined.
My twin brother is also 25. Yeah, combined we're 50.
Nice. So we're going to get into movie news topics and more, talk about the Cannes Film Festival on this week's show. We're also going to talk about Amazon's upcoming Lord of the Rings television show. But first, we start the way we start every podcast here on Intercut. Art, what have you been watching? Or listening to.
Yeah. Like I said, I went to Minnesota, and it's an 8-hour trip to Minnesota. I always say, find yourself an album, find yourself a song, something that's going to define the trip. Weeks, months, years later, you listen to that song, that album, you remember that California trip, that New York trip. When I visited you, when I went to New York, what was I listening to at that time? I want to say it was the Huncho Jack. So every time I listen to that, I remember just driving and getting charged freaking $20 on the Jersey tollways.
Yeah, it's not fun.
It's not. But for the Minnesota trip, I didn't really have a song per se. I mean, there's some songs we listened to. The John Mayer song's really good. There's that one song on the Playboi Carti album with Uzi that I do like. But I ended up, 8-hour trip, listening to a show people want me to cover, right? New Netflix show. 13 episodes of this Netflix show. I am not going to watch it. I am not going to get to my hotel and then decide, you know what? 13 Reasons Why. Forget the Mall of America. I want to spend watching that. No. I decided to listen to it on the drive there. My girlfriend was pretty much doing, what's it called? The Audible thing? Where, you know what I'm talking about? When it describes to you what's happening on the show?
Audio description, commentary. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
Right? So I'm hearing everything that's going on, but she'll just be like, now it's Justin. He's coming in. He's come back. He's looking at Clay. Oh no,
so she was watching it.
She was watching it the whole time. So it's not like I'm missing anything.
Right.
Per se, right? Also is the idea, and I talked to you about this comment that I got of someone telling me when I had said movies should be show, don't tell.
Yeah.
And they called me an idiot because that phrase supposedly is for storytelling. Storytelling is about showing, not telling. But Zach, what are movies?
Stories that you tell?
They're a form of storytelling. So yes, 13 Reasons Why just so happens to be a skewed version of that, because 13 Reasons Why is sometimes straight up exposition that you don't even need to watch. It's not Westworld. It's not Game of Thrones where you need to pay attention to the visual storytelling. Yeah. They'll literally tell you, oh no, Clay, why are you on the bridge, Clay, back off. Okay, I am backing off. It's like they tell you everything. So literally, it was the perfect thing to listen to and get done because I got a couple videos coming in on it. But the most interesting part about the season was the fact that it was released at Thursday night, Friday, and then the events in Texas happened.
Right. They ended up canceling the red carpet premiere in Los Angeles because of the Santa Fe school shooting. I
had said this with season 1. I'm like, it's going to allude to a school shooting. And of course, people called me an idiot. Hey, season 2's here. The whole show toys around with that idea of this kid who's the photographer. So he what's to people? He shoots people. They're so heavy-handed on people going, hey, Tyler, shoot me. Huh? y'all really are not toying around with, we got you. Hey, viewers, it looks, we're going to play with the idea that he's going to shoot people. There's
Right.
points where he literally sets up a backpack with explosives, and he sets it somewhere, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is, no, it's not. Boom, haha, it's just paint. Hey, storytellers, this isn't something you want to... That's what you do when someone's like about to maybe flirt with somebody, and you go, a tease. You don't tease a school shooting. That was just one of like 6 instances.
It feels a little gross.
It feels a little gross, and they do that every other episode. They go to a shooting range, and then he goes, oh, this feels really good. I know what to do next. Just kidding. It's graffiti. When we said the line, they'll never forget us, we're going to leave our mark, they meant graffiti. They know exactly what they're doing. And then at the end, they go, just kidding, we are going to give you the school shooting. And I don't want to fully spoil it, but yeah, it's really weird when you think of the events of that Friday in Texas and how that all plays into it. And yeah, I have a more in-depth video on that, but I take it you were watching 13 Reasons Why, Zach. What were you watching?
No, I did not watch 13 Reasons Why, and I don't know if I'm going to based on your recommendation.
Listen to it.
I'll make it a podcast. I have been also watching something on Netflix, Wild Wild Country. Have you heard anything about it yet?
I saw 2.5 episodes. I never finished it. Did you finish it?
Yeah, okay, I finished it.
Okay.
I would say that like that's around the point where it gets really, really interesting. 2 episodes, 3 episodes in.
That's what someone told me.
The first episode is a lot of background information on this guy, the Bhagwan. He's this religious leader of sorts that preaches about meditation, but also indulges in material things.
Smashing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like sexuality and freedom of sexuality, which is appealing to people. So he starts getting all these like hippie-ish type people following him, and his followers grow to like pretty huge amounts, amounts that I'm surprised I didn't know about. And where this story sort of picks off after the end of the first episode, the Bhagwan and his right-hand woman, his secretary, Sheila, move their operation to Oregon outside of some small towns that are just completely baffled by their existence there. And it becomes small-town America versus hippie, liberal commune where maybe they're okay with murdering people. It's really cool because you kind of start the show off thinking like, this Bhagwan guy seems pretty chill. Okay. I like his ideas. And,
right.
And then at the end, it's like, oh man, we can poison all the salad bars, and this event was the largest poisoning.
That's what they say, yeah.
In American history. And somehow I had no idea that this was a thing. Like, did you hear about this before?
No, you would think there'd be a BuzzFeed article or something, right? That random MLB, ESPN fact. Oh, by the way, did you guys know the top 3 biggest poisons? Yeah,
everybody knows about like
the
drinking
Kool-Aid.
the Kool-Aid, and yet we don't know anything about eating the salad. Yeah, it's really weird. But I think it's for fans of true crime. This is a really interesting documentary. I don't know how much of the true crime itch it's going to satisfy because they do this thing that that's a little frustrating by the end, where they're not really like sitting down the people who are responsible and saying, why did you do this? Or, they actually get some really good interviews. But I think the team of McLean Way and Chapman Way, their siblings who made this documentary, I don't know if they took it in all the directions I would like to, but they kept it compelling, and it's just a really fascinating story. We've talked in the past how sometimes a documentary doesn't necessarily have to be formally inventive, but if it's a really interesting story, you're interested in it anyway. I would say that this is worth your time. Like, I don't know what turned you off to it, but I'd say about 2 episodes in, you get to really hear some of the good details. 3 episodes in, and they're like starting to get towards the murdery bits. So
that's what it was. I was 2 episodes in, and I was like, "There's nothing wrong with this guy. Am I supposed to hate him?"
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, this sounds like the rappers we listen to nowadays. I'm like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
So that's what I needed. I was like, at what point does it get you?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's kind of cool about it. It's that luring you in. It's like, I don't think he's that bad. And then, no, they're that bad.
And you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I see how cults work.
So that brings me to another one. Did you see Evil Genius?
No, that is high on my to-watch list.
I finished that one, and that was a 4-parter as well.
Yeah.
First episode gets you like this. And then I feel like it fizzles off a bit. It's still very, very interesting. Very, very intriguing. But I'm curious to know your thoughts on it, because specifically the Duplass brothers.
Yeah, this
Man.
and Wild Wild Country are
Yeah.
both docuseries they've produced for Netflix.
They've been up there, dude. And I found it funny, like halfway through watching it, you realize who the evil genius is, and you're like, man, this person's a creep on Netflix, played by a Duplass brother. Is he just researching his, like, part of me makes me think like he's researching his next role, which I think is the most genius idea. Don't just research your next role. Make a documentary, produce a whole documentary for, exactly, you know?
Yeah.
It's that Chris Hemsworth, like, don't just try to be a comedian for Thor Ragnarok. You know, bank a couple of roles on Vacation and
Right.
Ghostbusters. That's your practice. It's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the yay or nay, talking about the latest happenings in the entertainment industry, starting with 2 more potential Star Wars spin-offs that got the movie rumor mill turning over the past week. One involving a potential Obi-Wan Kenobi spin-off that would take place prior to A New Hope, and another, a Donald Glover-centric Lando film. Both rumors have been downplayed, and nothing has been confirmed to follow the release of the upcoming Solo. But Art, yay or nay, you're on board for more character-centric Star Wars spin-offs?
For me, no. The only one that I want to see, and this is as a joke, is the Boba Fett one.
Yeah.
Because he won't speak the entire movie. I like Childish Gambino. This was brought up to me. Someone asked, is like, because supposedly the Lando one was in talks and then it got canceled. And I was like, but why do you want to see that? Like, his story, I feel, can be intertwined with Solo. The same way
Right.
Chewbacca doesn't need his own story. That's intertwined with Solo's.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like without having seen Solo, so I can't really like make this recommendation based off the content of the movie. I'd be more interested in a Lando sequel to Solo that is continuing what happens in Solo,
Exactly.
but in a more Lando-centric way. I don't know.
My biggest problem with prequels, and this was the question that I posed for my upcoming Twitter episode, is what are the best prequels, and do they tell the best stories, and do they add to it, right? Rogue One is a very interesting case in where it does add to, if you were fresh, or even if you weren't, if you were just doing a rewatch, you watch Rogue One and you see the events of Rogue One, and it makes episode 4 a bit bigger, a bit more grand, right? You go into episode 4 now going, people have sacrificed themselves to get to this point.
Yeah.
To some people, they already know this, right? Like, to some people, Solo may be a fun movie and we get to know a bit more about Han Solo. But there are other cases where a prequel doesn't really add that much to it. Sometimes it contradicts things. Sometimes you go, wait a minute, they went through this?
Right.
Doesn't seem like that in the originals that we saw.
Not my Han, you know? Like
This is not my Solo.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna... yeah, I mean, I don't know if going through the characters is necessarily the best way to do it. I think, if anything, similar to the Rogue One idea, you really want to do kind of like a tangential character, or yeah, like if it's an event that's sort of on the margins of the Star Wars story, or if it's a character like what is it? I'm forgetting the name of the cantina. Like somebody that we see in the cantina for a second. That might be more interesting because there's almost like more room to fill in.
Yes.
Whereas with Han or with Lando or with Obi-Wan, these are characters that have a lot of expectations on them, and it's...
You're not
I
gonna
think there's a
fulfill
little
them.
bit too much of like trying to thread the needle and making everybody happy and
Make sure that it all fits. And the biggest issue with it being a character thing too is that the main reason they do that, they're going for the big names, like you said. You know, they're not going to choose a side character in the cantina. They're going for the big names because that's what's going to make the most drawing. So then you start wondering, are you guys really trying to tell a story, or are you guys trying to build off of another character and thus risking ruining that character for some people? We both still stand in the idea that you can never ruin a character. Just go back to the ones that you like. But no, I agree with you. I think it would be a lot better to cover a specific area, event, something that they've talked about with Game of Thrones for the prequel series, where they want to cover a specific era. You know, be it that it's not related to forefathers or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's a great transition because according to
How'd I know?
fan site theonering.net, Amazon's forthcoming billion-dollar Lord of the Rings TV show will begin its first season centered on the adventures of a young Aragorn, which is not the name of a SoundCloud rapper. For those less familiar with Middle-earth swordsman, Aragorn was the character played by Viggo Mortensen.
Oh, okay.
In Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. So, Art, yay or nay, you're curious about a Lord of the Rings show that starts years before the story of the film.
Again, this is covering a character in particular, but Aragorn dies in the first, right? Or no. I'm thinking of Bean. Bean dies in the first. Aragorn lives. He's the king, is he not?
If I'm not mistaken, I'm not the Tolkien expert. This is not my forte.
The reason why I think it would be good is you said it's $1 billion, which I believe this is why Amazon is raising everyone's prices from the $8.99 or whatever is $99 to $120. It's specifically to pay off for this Lord of the Rings things. Yes, if they're putting that much money into it, if they're making an actual series off of it, so it's not the Hobbit thing again, where it's one book stretched mightily out to 2.5 movies. I am always for a series, right? Dear White People was a movie where both... did you see season 2?
I'm still not there, but I'll get there.
Amps it up, and you flesh out these characters a bunch more. Now, hopefully, I'm hoping it's not just him. I'm hoping it's other people. I hope they do a little, Breaking Bad isn't just a story of Walter White. He is the one who's Breaking Bad. But amidst all of that, it's also the story of Jesse Pinkman. You also get the perspective of his wife. You get some very, interesting villains. I hope it's not just from his perspective. He may be the main character. But I think fleshing out a series with that much money on it with Amazon, I think may be the biggest boost Amazon can get. Because I'm going to be straight with you. No one's watching Mozart in the Jungle.
Yeah, no matter how many Emmys that show wins.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you. I'm thinking of like the Game of Thrones model here, where you're trying to develop like a full world. Amazon wants this show to be a kind of Game of Thrones level hit. And what's so great about Game of Thrones is it took the time to really develop all these characters in this full world, and when it gets to the big moments, they have weight because why they mean stuff. For me, as somebody who isn't really a big fantasy fan, or Tolkien specifically, but fantasy in general, when the ring shows up in Lord of the Rings, fans of the books know that's important, but we as an audience aren't necessarily so clued into its importance. I feel like a show like this, maybe it's going to wait years to really introduce that idea, or the ring will be like the dragons of Game of Thrones, just something that's kind of hinted at, slowly developed, and then becomes like the focus for those last couple of seasons. I think they could do a lot of really interesting things by going so far back, by going to something that's a little less familiar to a mainstream audience. So I'm for it, although I'm still not super excited about the show.
Well, I mean, it comes with my Amazon Prime thing, so I'll give it that.
Yeah. Zombieland, returning from the dead, apparently. Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick are hot off of writing Deadpool 1 and 2. And it seems they have the juice to return to the franchise that shot them to popularity. Talking to Vulture, the co-writers revealed that they're planning to follow up their 2009 movie Zombieland with a sequel that will reunite the original cast. So, Art, yay or nay, you want to see Woody Harrelson, Jesse Eisenberg, Emma Stone, Abigail Breslin, and zombie Bill Murray return in Zombieland 2?
I don't really care for the cast. I think the movie's it's fine, but this movie has a following still to this day. Some people were bringing it up to me just last week, talking about how this is like one of their favorite meta movies, and I keep forgetting. I always forget that these are the guys who made Deadpool, the biggest meta movie now. I was like, I always forget to make that connection. I think with the success that they've brought upon themselves, I feel like they're in a mode. They're in a groove right now. They haven't really had this big dud, if I'm thinking back to their filmography. So, if they're able to get back the same cast, who exponentially have all grown since the last one.
Each one's more famous now than they were then, I'd say.
Some have Academy Awards since then. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I'm totally for it too. You know, before this sequel was in the works, they tried to turn Zombieland into a TV show during the
I
whole like
remember that.
Amazon pilot run, and it was kind of bad. It was kind of low budget, and now they seem to have a little bit more weight. You know, going off of all the money that Deadpool's made, this cast is a much bigger draw than they were or 10 years ago, I guess already. So I think there could be something interesting in that. They probably have a lot of ideas for this world. They're passionate about this world. I like enabling writers who have a lot of ideas for something that's kind of a specific vision. And I thought Zombieland was actually a lot of fun. I probably liked it a little more than you, telling from context, but it's interesting to me. I want to see more. I'm curious if the original cast is actually going to come back.
Yeah.
But given that they probably are going to have a bigger budget for this one, I think they could really up the ante. And it'd be interesting because, usually we don't get this long of a wait between sequels. I wonder if they'll do anything because of that.
I hope they don't Zoolander it.
Right, yeah. 15 years after he was rumored to be replacing Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker, Jake Gyllenhaal may finally wind up in a Spider-Man movie, but not as Spidey. The actor is in talks to play the role of Spider-Man villain Mysterio in the upcoming sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, even though Peter doesn't feel so good. But Art, yay or nay, you want to see Jake Gyllenhaal play Mysterio?
I want to see Jake Gyllenhaal.
That's a good
Come
point.
on, you know this. And I think we brought this up before in another episode where Jake Gyllenhaal, he's had the awards buzz. He's, a good-looking dude. He makes the rounds as a star, as a celebrity. He's in a bunch of great movies. But I personally felt he's never had that franchise.
Right.
Right? Because every other...
He tried with, like, Prince of Persia.
He tried with Prince of Persia. That went nowhere.
Yeah.
And I always forget Gemma Artet, whatever her name is.
Artetton?
Yeah, she's in that. That's so... Anyways, he's never had that. Christian Bale has had that. The awards, but he's had The Dark Knight, right? A bunch of other Oscar winners have that plus something else, right? Jennifer Lawrence has her award movies, but she has a bunch of franchises.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's never had that Marvel money, right? Like, even Kate Blanchett now has that Marvel money.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to have him in this. The only thing I have against that is that you don't see Mysterio's face. So, as I said, what are you going to... A ghost story him? You're just going to cover him up? You're not going to see his face? Then what's the point? And if Mysterio has a sound effect on his voice, I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, without knowing as much about the villain as you do, I mean, I think it'd be interesting just because I think Jake Gyllenhaal is not only a really good actor, but an actor who plays villains in a fun way, whether it's Nightcrawler or Okja. He can lean into the comic bookness of villains, I think, and really give a very hammy kind of fun performance that I think would work in this elastic, very rubbery Spider-Man universe. I don't know about not seeing his face. I mean, I think he's a really good visual actor and could do a lot with his face, so that maybe is a hang-up for me, but I don't know. Who knows? They might reimagine him. They often do for these movies. Is that like a make or break thing with Mysterio?
That would be like having Batman without the mask.
Oh.
Like that's his that's his look.
Does
it would make absolutely no sense.
Does he take it off like in private? Maybe they'll give him a lot of scenes in private.
What? Ain't no damn Hamlet. You ain't gonna have no monologue happening. What I must bear as I face this teenage boy. I don't know. Oh, and the other thing being is that I don't want it to be a Killmonger effect where you fall in love with this character and then it's just a one and done. That's the other thing.
Right.
I really want him to have that Marvel money. I want him to be around for a bit.
Well, another thing is that there are rumors that Michael Keaton's character will be back for this movie too. Yeah. So we might not be seeing the end of Jake Gyllenhaal. He might be around. I don't know if they're still trying to do that Sinister Six thing eventually, but.
Bro, I'm telling you. So here's a quick theory I'm gonna just throw out there, right? So they're still working with Sony.
Yeah.
Right. And Sony has set up all that dumb stuff, right? There is a thing called the Spider-Verse, where a bunch of the Spider-Mans clash from each other from different universes. Like, that's an actual thing. We have all these actors still alive who have played Spider-Man.
Interesting.
Bear with me, right? Because we just had somebody do a snap and reality and everything changed, right? If we can accept freaking guns turning into bubbles, who's to say when you're literally working with somebody, right? Because we've been saying, hey, what if they get the X-Men or somebody else? Oh, that's not really possible because of rights. Well, wait a minute. You do have the rights with Sony and all the previous Spider-Man. And if they are willing to, probably won't happen because, wasn't it both of them? Toby and Andrew found out by watching the news.
I think so, yeah.
So I don't think they actually have a good relationship. But just spitballing out there, if they do a Spideyverse thing where they end up clashing with other Spider-Men and maybe previous also villains, I personally, Doc Ock to me is in the realm of people who you can't really do a new incarnation and live up to it, right?
Yeah.
Heath Ledger's also one, but that's not stopping them from doing different Jokers. I don't know. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah.
If they do something like that.
All right, so let's hit a few topics in the rough cuts before we break from yay or nays, starting with Obama flicks, as previously reported on Intercut, and now made official. Former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama have signed a multi-year content deal. Art, yay or nay, you'll be looking forward to new Obama-approved Netflix content.
I'm down on it. If it's on Netflix, I'm cool with anybody stuffing as much stuff as you want on Netflix. I just hope that with the amount of stuff that they put up there, that the quantity or that the quality makes up for it, right? Because we got the Letterman one back, and that one's cool. But we talked about it before. There's a great video out there by Thomas Flight about how they're just trying to do something different. It's particularly for that one, it's the editing style of it. I just hope that the content they create is good.
Yeah, and I think through Obama's years as president, he or the people around him have shown a pretty savviness when it comes to the media and what media to take and what media to do. Yeah. Whether that's like giving him funny speeches at the Correspondents' Dinner or letting him do some Funny or Die videos, stuff like that. So I'm hoping, you know, they've got the right decision makers around them, or maybe it's just his taste. You know, he puts out interesting playlists and apparently likes Kendrick and stuff. So maybe the Obamas have good taste. I think Malia is trying to become a filmmaker. Maybe this is their way of just kind of letting her get in.
Filming, yeah. All right.
Yeah. Rick and Morty fans anxiously awaiting the show's 4th season pickup were rewarded for their patience with a staggering 70-episode order from Adult Swim for a show that only has 31 episodes so far. Yeah. So, Art, yay or nay, you like this big move by Adult Swim?
Sure. I feel like there's something about it makes me feel like there's something else going on, right? I feel like they're gonna do something. They didn't just accept this. He would have accepted it for a reason, for an idea. And 70 isn't so much. It's I feel like that's it. That's the final. Like that's the max of it. You get what I mean?
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a deal they were doing to basically say, okay, we're gonna do 70 and we're done. You know, I don't know.
Exactly. Like it's just 70, and that's the capacity of it.
Right.
Or if it ends up being a troll thing, Rick and Morty is very meta, and you can just see them ending it after another 20, another 10 or something, and then just being like, can you imagine if we actually signed that deal, and then it just like ends or something. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting that they're willing to put so much weight behind this show. I mean, it's clearly a phenomenon.
Oh, that's not just a show. That's a phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's an interesting move just on the idea that we don't normally see a television network commit this hard after one of its shows. So
true. So there's no doubt they cut the check.
Yeah.
So they have the money. Do you think that they have the ideas though? Dan Harmon and
I mean,
what are the guys?
I wouldn't. I'm not going to be the person who says Dan Harmon's going to run out of ideas anytime soon. But
clearly the bag was big enough that he's like, of course, let's do this.
Yeah.
But did he say let's do this before he had the ideas?
That's the thing, you know. I mean, I don't know if I doubt they have 70 ideas. That seems like a lot this early in the game, but
this is where I go. At what point is it gonna waver? Because just follow these guys on Twitter.
Yeah.
My man goes crazy sometimes. He just loses it. So.
Yeah. Steven Spielberg is ready to put together his next project following Ready Player One, and it may see him reteam with a familiar face, Leonardo DiCaprio, for the first time since 2002's Catch Me If You Can.
Underrated.
The two icons are planning an epic biopic of former U.S. Army commanding general and the 18th President of the United States, Ulysses S. Grant. Art, yay or nay, this is the project you'd like to see those two reteam for?
Not really, but sure.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, I mean, we're both not huge fans of Lincoln and
exactly.
you hear Spielberg and President and epic biopic, and that sounds like Lincoln.
Oscar.
Yeah, and you know, that's also sounds like a thing Leo would do too, because he's shown up in some kind of boring movies that are a little bit historical too. I'm hoping there's more there, but it's
Probably
definitely not as exciting as the premise to Catch Me If You Can. Gotham was recently renewed for a 5th and final season, but the show's producers aren't yet done exploring the Batverse. The Hollywood Reporter says Epix has ordered 10 episodes of Pennyworth, a show that will explore the life of Bruce Wayne's butler and Alfred Pennyworth prior to his arrival in Gotham while working for Bruce Wayne's father in London in the 1960s. Art, yay or nay?
Sure, we talking Epix, the channel with the X at the end. Epix.
Epix, they got the movies, Epix.
I'll say this. People have been telling me, it's like, hey, you got to watch Gotham, like, for real. Like, starting season 3 got real good. And have you seen those fan edits of the Joker that they got?
No. Is it interesting?
He's not allowed to be called the Joker. He came out and he said it. Because DC refuses to let any TV people... They can do the Joker. This is why it's super weird. They can literally do the Joker. They just cannot call him Joker because that's saved for the movies, not the TV. They don't want to make... Oh, they're willing to put Jared Leto and call that the Joker.
Yeah,
but
right.
They said, on TV, you can literally do the Joker, but you can't call him the Joker, so his name is Jerome. I have seen some fan edits of this guy. I forget what his name is, but I believe he was in The Gifted. This actor goes balls to the wall.
Oh, damn.
Crazy. This kid is good. He's also not allowed to have the green hair, so I think he's been playing with the purple hair.
Right.
This kid is killing it. And I've just been seeing the fan edits. It's making me want to actually catch up with the show because I've only seen season 1. So if they're going to stick to this, like the fans have come back. These fans are like Brockhampton fans for this show. They're like, no, you got to give this thing a chance. I was like, all right, I just might. The thing with the Alfred one is that this incarnation of Alfred is like Earth 1 Alfred, and where he's not just a butler, he's actually like trained and stuff.
Yeah, he's like a spy or something.
Exactly. So this is where it's not just going to be like the freaking what's his name from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's not going to be his version of the story where he's just serving. It's actually going to be him, like, you know, serving up some punches and stuff. So that would be interesting to see.
Cool. So let's move on to our topic of the week. But let us know in the comments down below what you thought of this week's Yay or Nay news. Let's talk about the Cannes Film Festival, which just recently ended in France and awarded some of its winners. They do awards annually where they give out Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress to the films that are appearing in competition. Not every movie that plays in Cannes plays in competition, though. So like Solo, which is a film that showed there, was not shown in competition. Also, the new Lars von Trier film was not shown in competition. So of the films that were in competition, it was the Japanese film Shoplifters that took home the top prize, the Palme d'Or. Pavel Pawlikowski, who previously won Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars for his movie Ida, took home the Best Director award for his latest movie, Cold War. But I think of most interest to most American audiences is that Spike Lee's new movie, Black Klansman, won the Grand Prize Award, which is typically given to the second place film. Let me start off with this, Art. Do the Cannes accolades for Black Klansman or any of these other movies make you more interested in films coming out of the festival?
Y'all see the title of this segment right here if you're watching just this segment, not the entire podcast, which you should. Cannes is one of the worst film festivals. I'm saying this from my perspective right here. And when I say that, it's a layered type of thing, right? By a layered type of thing, I'm not talking about the films themselves. I'm not. I'm talking about the way the festival in and of itself does its awards, and it clearly having an agenda. We've talked about the Oscars before as being another award show, because the thing about this is that it's very much an award show and a film festival at the same time. Like Sundance does that as well, but the award for what is it, the Palme d'Or is that they give? Like that's what they hold on to like the end when they make the DVD copy of the thing. But Cannes, whatever you want to call it, clearly has an agenda, as we covered in the past, where they act like fifth graders who are doing these things against Netflix, where they bar Netflix because a movie needs to be shown in a cinema. And Zach, you and I are very much on the side where we always want to see every movie we can at a movie theater. That is the sanctuary, right? That is our... The cinema is our synagogue where we go and we worship and we get invested in these worlds. Cannes is the one place that always takes it a step above, right? When you hear about booing audiences, where is that?
It's at Cannes. That's where people take films seriously enough to boo a film.
Mm-hmm. But do they even care about the movie?
Thing,
exactly. Do they even care about the movie? And we're talking about, again, the film festival, the award ceremony that happens with the people who worked on this film actually there. We're talking about the one place that actually has a dress code. The one place where people will walk out in front of cameras so that it can be shown, so it can become a trending moment on Twitter, where you walk out of a movie from a director who you already know what he's going to serve you. And I've gotten that because some people I know gave a counter argument with what's his name,
Lars von Trier.
Lars von Trier and his movie.
Okay,
where people walked out.
Do you want to talk about that quick? Because to stay on the to stay with the beaches of France, over 100 moviegoers walked out of the premiere of Lars's new movie, The House That Jack Built, calling the film disgusting, torturous, repulsive. It's not the first time that a von Trier film prompted walkouts, but this is the biggest walkout in Cannes memory. Does this kind of make you even care about the film, or does you think this is just a symptom of the Cannes Film Festival?
I feel when anybody ever talks about walkouts or whatever else, it's a publicity stunt. It is always a publicity stunt. Yeah. All of it is a publicity stunt. Thing with it, the counter argument that people gave was just because Lars von Trier has made movies that cause people to want to walk out doesn't mean that we should expect that from all his movies. Thus, you should go. I was just looking at some of the pictures of the people who were walking out, and it reminds me of when I go to Sundance and some people watch like 10 minutes and then leave, and I see them as they leave, that blue, beautiful silver badge shine in my face, and I go, oh, you are not a film critic badge. That is that VIP badge where you literally aren't going for the movies. You're just going because you're super rich and you want to work out that dress and want to be with the celebrities or whatever business person you are, and you just leave because anybody else would have known. And again, to bring it back to that, you're right. Not all of his movies need to be that gory or whatever you want to call it. What's the premise of this movie, Zach?
Serial killer story? I mean, there is something. There's something really kind of ridiculous about the image of all these fit people dressed up in tuxedos with tails and fancy dresses and sitting in an elegant French movie theater and watching this serial killer film, this torture porn gore fest. Which, like, I'm not saying that something that's gory can't have artistic elements to it, but it is sort of funny this way that they are trying to the
what opened last year
from
I see you have, what are those things that you have behind you? I can see some of the Psycho, Devil Wears Prada. What do you call those things? What do you call those types of images?
Oh, right, Emoji Movie.
So we're talking about dresses and very high class people, and Netflix isn't good enough, even though Netflix is restoring that lost what's his name? Orson Welles movie, right? Doing actual things for cinema. They're not allowed to be here. Yeah, 2017, we're going to open up the festival or whenever they showed it with the Emoji Movie. Yeah, is it juxtaposition or is it being hypocritical at some
Technically, it premiered out of competition, which, they've had some not so great films premiering out of competition. But yeah, it's not in theme with the rest of what Cannes normally does. So it's a little strange when they do stuff like that. I mean, that's, not that Solo and the Emoji Movie are the same thing, but Solo is the same thing this year in that, like, it doesn't feel like this movie belongs next to this slate of like random foreign low budget films. This is
what I'm talking about. TIFF, I always feel not so much that it has a theme, but it has a specific thing that they aim to present within their films. Sundance, the way it breaks down its categories and the way that it's trying to push independent film, even though it's kind of changing throughout the years. South by Southwest, they recognize their audience. This is why it's so weird when you see stuff from Cannes coming out, and there's all these people dressed up in dresses and suits and all that stuff, and they go into a movie like the Lars von Trier thing, and I feel what they want to do, because it's a part of the thing, is to walk out.
Yeah.
Is to boo. Even if you're not getting anything from the movie, you just have this, what's the word that film people don't ever want to hear? Pretentiousness to you. That you want to live up to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there is, there's that sort of feedback loop, I guess you can call it, where it's like, oh, I went to Cannes and I walked out of a movie. It's kind of like part of the Cannes experience.
Exactly.
That's where people walk out. That's where people boo at movies. There's always a story every year of some movie getting booed. Last year it was the Netflix logo specifically before Okja. They didn't boo the movie Okja. They just booed when the Netflix logo showed up.
Yeah.
Before that,
That's
it was
dumb.
Gus Van Sant's Sea of Trees movie, which the critics who were there, or not even critics, just people who were there, just decided it wasn't good enough or what. And even though there's probably a ton of movies that are worse than I haven't seen it, but I'm sure it's not so offensive to you that you need to boo. But there's this pretension to the festival that's really interesting, and I think it's something that sets it apart, and I think it's something that
don't get us wrong. You and I get tickets. We're there day one.
Yeah, we would go if we had the opportunity.
No doubt. But in terms of the festival, you're right. I'm always very curious to see the films that are winning. Right, You Were Never Really Here. It was one of my favorites from this past month, and that won at Cannes last year. I want to say, whenever it had come out, and that was a movie that wasn't even done being edited when it was shown and still won. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
yeah, I
don't blame the movies. I blame the festival.
What's interesting about Cannes to me is it's the one notable festival I can think of that gets attention in America, even though there aren't a lot of American movies that are shown there. Yeah. Under the Silver Lake, I think, was shown there, but I don't think it was shown in competition. Really, was Black Klansman is the big American movie that is part of the reception, but oftentimes the American movies get shut out at these awards, and it's a lot of awarding the French films or Asian films or other European countries' films, and it's it's one of the few times where there is a big spotlight on the international film community. I know there's a lot of stories about a film called Rafiki that was at Cannes this year, which was I want to say it was a Nigerian lesbian love film, even though homosexuality is outlawed there, and the film is banned there. But they were still able to make it there and bring it to Cannes. So that's an interesting story that Cannes is able to help highlight. That being said, they seem to so intentionally steer away from a lot of the things that are a lot of the ways that movies are going by doing this ban on films that don't have a French theatrical release date, which is essentially just a swipe at Netflix, even though Netflix then came in and bought a couple of the Cannes Award winners.
That's funny.
I don't know. This is all, like Thierry Frémaux, who is the director of the Institut Lumière, the French Film Institute. He's the one who's kind of been on the campaign to really, kind of keep Cannes, whether that's eliminating the films that are streaming, or it's the recent the banning of selfie sticks. There was also a big thing, I think, last year, how all women had to wear heels or something like that. So,
how is that a film festival?
Exactly. There's all these things about it that are very hoity-toity and based on high class culture and stuff like that. That
exactly.
Just seems like
that's what it
distant
makes me
from a lot of what's
movies.
Interesting about films.
Exactly. Talking about how it needs to open up in cinemas, but you won't even invite those cinema goers. Isn't Cannes invite only?
I believe so. I think it's one of the only film festivals, or at least major ones, where you can't buy tickets. You
can't buy tickets. You have to be invited, which again makes me go, and I forget, because there's a phrase for this. There's a phrase dealing with that idea of having things being so limited, guarded, and not open to the public brings it down.
The exclusivity of it?
The exclusivity of it, I'm a beer aficionado. A lot of people don't like the Wisconsin beers that aren't allowed to be sold outside of Wisconsin. To some people, that gives it an intrigue. Ooh, I have to go all the way to Wisconsin to get it and drink it there. To other people, it's like, no, you can ship it out.
Yeah.
You just don't want to, and you'll sue the people who sell it because they don't have the license because you refuse to give it. That same idea there when limited releases come out, right? When the studio decides to do that tier thing where it's just that one theater, right? That's like 20 minutes from your house, and the one in LA before they release it somewhere else, and then they go, oh, the movie didn't make money. What could we have done to stop this? Release it. Have faith in your movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's, Cannes is fighting a battle that I don't know if it's going to be a battle worth fighting a couple of years from now, which makes it stand out in a weird way, as well as all these like very rigid like cultural things that they've done to make themselves this like fancy exclusive type of festival. It makes it intriguing for people like you and me who are film fans and go to festivals. Yeah. Like I would like to be able to do Cannes one year, but there's an alienation, I think, from what most movie fans care for. Yeah. And I think most people won't necessarily be that intrigued by a lot of the films that play at Cannes, or necessarily boosted by the idea that, oh, BlacKkKlansman won an award at Cannes.
Yeah.
I definitely am more intrigued by that. I think the awards are really interesting. That's the other thing I do really like about the festival, is they're so transparent with who the jury is, who's running the jury.
And I like the jury this year. I really do like the jury this year.
Yeah, it was run by Cate Blanchett. I know Kristen Stewart was on it. I know Ava DuVernay was on it. Do you know anybody else? But it was a very...
Oh, boy. What's his name? With the mustache, and he was over there at Cannes. I believe he was in Michael Shannon, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah, right? Shannon. So, yeah, it was a super eclectic jury of really interesting filmmakers. So I think it's always interesting to, like, kind of see where their taste is, too. Like, these are the people giving these awards out, which you don't necessarily know as well, or the people aren't as famous at places like Sundance that also give awards out. But, there is, like, a weird... I don't know.
At what point is it a film festival, or is it just a snobby cinematic club?
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, as film festivals have expanded and there have been new ones popping up all across the nation and internationally, like the idea of a film festival is looking more and more different from what Cannes is, and Cannes is really this like a exclusive industry and press event.
Exactly.
So yeah, there's definitely like a disconnect there. But I'm curious to see what some of these movies will be like. I'm definitely curious about Cold War. I'm super curious about BlacKkKlansman.
Yeah.
Especially considering the cast, and that people have been saying that this is in the vein of other Spike Lee films, but feels modern. You got Jordan Peele producing it, so I think there's a lot to be excited about with that movie in particular. Any final thoughts on Cannes, or things to look out for or pay attention to?
Worst film festival, can't wait to go in 2020. Zach, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't go if I could pay for it, but please invite me.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to get to the new to see, talk about what's new in theaters to streaming and on VOD, starting with, we've been mentioning it all show, May 25th, Solo, A Star Wars Story is finally out, starring Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo, and of course our boy Donald Glover is in this one, doing his Lando thing. Got Phoebe Waller-Bridge in this, and some other, Emilia Clarke in this, a bunch of other interesting faces. Are you planning on catching this one early, or?
I was supposed to catch it yesterday. I was in Minnesota, so I wasn't able to make it back. Shout out to E-Man. He hooked it up with the ticket, but I had missed it, so I'll probably be watching it Wednesday night. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. I was excited for it from the beginning because of the style that Lord and Miller were going for. I'm very interested to see how much of it stays there. My biggest fear with the movie is that I get the Ant-Man effect, where it feels just like a watered-down, degraded version of a director's very stylistic direction.
You see the remnants of the thing
It's the worst part, right? Cold, hot, what's worse? Lukewarm. That's just my biggest worry. But it's Ron Howard, too. They got somebody who was able to come in and hopefully deliver it.
And the cast is delightful. I've heard Phoebe Waller-Bridge is really great in it. I love her on Fleabag, and she's the one writing Killing Eve right now. So I'm excited to see this one, hoping it is good.
Let's go.
There's also a few films coming out in limited release, including 2 new Elle Fanning movies, How to Talk to Girls at Parties, Elle Fanning, Nicole Kidman, Alex Sharp are in this one, and Mary Shelley, Elle Fanning as the author of Frankenstein. Maisie Williams of Game of Thrones is also in that one. Also out this weekend, Who We Are Now, In Darkness, and The Gospel According to Andre. New to streaming, Netflix, May 24th, Fauda, Season 2. This is the highly acclaimed Israeli thriller. It's back for its 2nd season. May 25th, The Toys That Made Us Season 2, Troll Hunters Part 3. Then Ibiza. This is a new Netflix comedy with Gillian Jacobs, Phoebe Robinson, Vanessa Bayer, starring as friends on a trip to Spain's Party Island. And then Steve Martin and Martin Short, An Evening You Will Forget for the Rest of Your Life. 2 all-time great comedic performers, though Steve Martin hasn't done too much performing of comedy lately, which makes me really want to check this one out, because I've always loved Steve Martin.
All right. That sounds
and
good.
Then on May 27th, The Break with Michelle Wolf, which premieres hot off her White House Correspondents' Dinner speech.
Oh, yeah.
HBO Now on May 26th, Patty Cakes, which was a Sundance hit from 2017.
Huge! Huge hit that was.
Yeah, it made a whole lot of money at Sundance and not anywhere else. And then The Tale, one of your favorites from Sundance this year, is premiering on HBO.
Right. Man,
you want to talk a little bit about The Tale?
Bro, like, I can't even, it feels weird calling it my favorite, you know what I mean? That's like that's like saying one of your favorite stories with the Bill Cosby scandal.
I love 12 Years a Slave.
Like, exactly. That is exactly the way to put it. Best way to watch it is the fact that it is coming out on HBO, because this is a movie that would be really hard to sell in theaters, to get butts in theaters, and to keep it there and staring at the screen. At least at home, you could be like, I'm going to pause this, go take a shower, and I'm going to just scrub through some of these scenes, because we're talking about show don't tell, right?
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes. Maybe sometimes it's deep.
Yeah.
And that's a very weird choice to say for this movie. But it's
My girl
crazy.
Laura Dern's good in this one.
Oh, fantastic.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
On May 27th, also on HBO Now, HBO Go, Fist Fight, the Ice Cube Charlie Day comedy. I think that came out a year or two ago. On Amazon, May 23rd, Beast of Burden. This is Daniel Radcliffe, Grace Gummer, Pablo Schreiber in a thriller that came out in February to kind of poor reviews. May 25th, Picnic at Hanging Rock, starring Natalie Dormer. And then May 27th, Just Getting Started. It's a straight-to-video release with Morgan Freeman, Tommy Lee Jones, and Renee Russo. That's going to be available on Amazon. Then on May 27th, on both Amazon and Hulu, The Wedding Plan. It's an Israeli romantic comedy. New to VOD, May 22nd, Red Sparrow, Game Night, The Party, 1517 to Paris, A Fantastic Woman, and Early Man, which I know you didn't like Early Man that much. So some interesting titles there, actually. I know that you liked Game Night, so I'm going to try and catch up with that one. But all those aside, what is your pick for the week?
My pick for the week, I'm going to have to say, is probably Barry. I think season 2 is coming out if it's not already out. I was telling you about this before the show. I was scrubbing through some Netflix stuff, right? And I was like, I feel like there's nothing to... Why am I always looking on Netflix? I pay $9.99 for, or however much I pay, I don't even know, for HBO. What am I doing? Let me go watch that, right?
Yeah, it's not TV, it's HBO.
Exactly.
You gotta get on it.
And so I went on HBO and I just started binging a bunch of stuff. I would recommend Insecure. Insecure has 2 seasons out. It's pretty good. I'm halfway through the 2nd season. I know season 3 is coming out. But I started seeing this show called Barry. And what really got me onto it was I saw Bill Hader, and I like Bill Hader. And then I learned that he was directed some of the episodes. And your boy, Hero...
Mirai. Hero Mirai from Atlanta.
And This Is America. People were like, yo, have you seen Barry? And I was like, well, I mean, I'm on HBO. You guys had mentioned this. I binged the entire season overnight, and I loved it. It is fantastic. There are some scenes where you're like, do they even know that they're saying this? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, one thing is, I can't believe I'm seeing this, or they're going this way. There's another thing when you're watching the show about this hitman who semi-falls in love and starts becoming an actor, where you go, is this supposed to be a metaphor? Because if this is not a metaphor, this is a really good metaphor. Yeah. That's a great show, and I'm excited for season 2, so...
Yeah, I've heard it does some really interesting things with the like idea of anti-hero, how Hater goes from likable to doing things that you can't forgive him for being right back to likable again.
Yo, for real though, there is one thing where you're like, oh man, he has to do. Oh, but that can. Oh man, it's good. We'll be talking about this once you binge it. We'll be talking about this.
Another thing interesting about that, just you brought up Hiro Murai. I was reading some interviews with him after This Is America, and he said he learned how to do some of the action that he needed in the This Is America video from doing action scenes in Barry. So he's learning on the fly and getting better and better.
Smart.
Yeah. I'm going to go with my recommendation as Wild Wild Country. Like I mentioned earlier, it's intriguing docuseries, only 6 episodes long, but I think it asks really interesting questions and just shows how like the allure of cults kind of brings a lot of these people in. I think it's a fun watch. So either that or you can be like me and you can catch up on Game Night because it got a lot better reviews than I was expecting it to, and now it's available on VOD. But that's all for this week's show. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter @ZShevich or on Instagram, also @ZShevich. Maybe you want to go to Letterboxd @ZShevich. I've been getting some new followers from Intercut listeners, so thanks for checking me out there. Also, check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/multiplexshow. Art, where can people find more from you?
You can find me at The A to Z Show on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, where I'm doing a couple of stuff over there. We're about to reach 200. Maybe by the time this episode's up, I think we're reached that milestone, dude. It's
200K.
Crazy.
Congratulations.
200K. Yeah, that was insane. I was talking to somebody, and they're like, oh, "How's your YouTube channel doing?" I was like, "I hit 200." They're like, "Oh, that's cute." I was like, "Yeah, 200,000." Is like 200,000. I was like, "What you think was up?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm proud of it, and yeah, thank you guys, all of you guys for watching, all of you guys who have come from the A to Z Show, those of you who come from the Intercut to the A to Z Show. Thank you guys for that. So you can definitely catch me over there, or just continue catching Zach and I here on the Intercut podcast.
Yes, you can listen to every episode of the Intercut podcast using iTunes, SoundCloud, whatever your favorite podcatcher is. I like Overcast. And also make sure you're subscribed not just to that audio podcast, but to the video podcast too, here on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/IntercutPod, where you can watch our bright, smiling faces as we run through the latest in entertainment for all of y'all. Find new episodes of Intercut every week. Also check out our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter. All those pages are @IntercutPod. You'll get updates throughout the week from both me and Art. I just retweeted a poll of what I should watch next on TV. Barry is one of those options, so if you want me to watch Barry, go check out IntercutPod. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, freeze all motor functions.
I wasn't gonna move.